Hello everyone, and welcome. Hi Alexander.
Hi Saskia. Hello everyone. Nice to see you.
Hey, and welcome. Nice to see you, yes, very much. Welcome to Global XR Talks. And for those of us joining us today for the very first time, Global XR Talks is a monthly event where every month we invite 1 to 3 speakers from the community who give talks about exciting new topics. And today, for the very first time, we have not a regular event, but a Global XR Talks special with an amazing, exciting panel of speakers who will tell us all about the new Microsoft Mesh. And apart from that, we also have a yearly conference. Alexander,
Yes,
you want to tell us about
correct,
that?
Saskia. That is correct, Saskia. So we have a yearly event, and that's called the Global XR Conference, and this will take this year place in October. And the event is a 3-day event, full packed with sessions, workshops, discussion panels like the one we have today, and a lot more. And if you want to find out, please follow us on the globalxrconference.com. You can already sign up. You can even, if you're interested to speak, just sign up as a speaker, and we will see you there.
Yes. Awesome. So today's topic is Microsoft Mesh, and that's why the two of us are actually already in Microsoft Mesh. As you can see, we don't look like our usual selves. We are avatars. And Mesh is a new platform from Microsoft. Alexander, do you want to talk to us a bit about what Mesh actually is?
Oh, Saskia, I can do that definitely. I don't want to talk too much about it because we of course have the Mesh panel. But to give you a little bit of an idea what Mesh is a developer platform which allows us to build rich XR solutions. And it's based on a number of several capabilities. Think about how to integrate multi-user synchronization. Think about doing immersive presence using holoportation, as remote rendering by rendering large models on any platform. So it's really an interesting new application platform which Microsoft is going to provide to us.
Yes, and for us developers, I think the most exciting part of this is that it makes our lives so much easier. Right? All of those, some of them really difficult problems that the Mesh platform solves, they usually take a long time to develop, and now we can just use the Mesh platform to integrate all of those capabilities into our own applications, and I think that's really awesome.
I completely agree. That's indeed true, because of this platform, the threshold for building XR solutions becomes so much lower and easier for everyone.
Just look at, for example, look at how cool this tracking is. Alexander and me can just high five now.
Yeah,
High five.
let's do that. Right.
And you can see our fingers are being tracked, even our eyes are being tracked. But we don't want to tell you too much about it, because that's why we have our panel. So I would say, Alexander.
Yeah, so
That's enough for us.
No further. Again?
That is enough from us.
Oh yes, sorry, you're right. It's enough from us. I like to be here. Sorry for that. So let's move on to the panel.
Everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy the panel.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this special edition of XR Global Talks and our panel today on Microsoft Mesh. Super excited to be here and talk about this, especially with some of my colleagues from Microsoft and then a lot of our community members around the world. So quick round of introductions. As you can see, we've got a really big panel today, so we don't want to take too long doing this. But I'm going to kind of go around the screen here, and we'll start with Alex.
Oh, thanks. Hi, Alexander Meijers, working for Ivana as a global XR tech lead and focusing mainly on XR technologies from an enterprise perspective.
Great. And Saskia?
Hi, I'm Saskia Groenewegen from the Netherlands. I'm the tech lead for VR AR at Ordina, and same as Alexander, we build enterprise applications.
And Joost.
Hello, I'm Joost. I'm Senior Mixed Reality Architect at Velikis, a little startup in Amsterdam focusing on health and safety training. And I'm a long time infamous in the HoloLens world for having some apps in the store and writing a lot about it.
Dorrene?
Wonderful. Hi, everybody. My name is Dorrene. I'm a Senior Program Manager on the Mesh platform team. My focus is making sure that the developer platform and infrastructure matches up with what we say on stage. Happy to talk today.
Ivana?
Hello, everyone. I'm Ivana from Argentina. I'm a quality manager and just announced an innovation evangelist at the company called 3XM Group. I'm in charge of all the new customers that are likely arriving to the company, specifically to develop applications for HoloLens 2.
Great. Simon?
Hey folks, I'm Simon. I'm the product lead for Microsoft Mesh. And my goal in life is to make sure that we listen to you all as the customers of this amazing medium, understand your needs and build platforms and applications that deliver on that.
And last but not least, René.
Hello! my name is René from The Long Reply, where I lead research and innovation around emerging technologies, including spatial computing, mixed reality, day one HoloLens developer, also topics I cover is computer vision, AI, quantum computing, all of that fun stuff. Also a Microsoft Regional Director, MVP, and advisor for the VR and AR Association, as well as the XR Bootcamp, not to be mistaken with the Global XR Bootcamp. And happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. And of course, I always forget to introduce myself in these things, so I'll go last. I'm Jesse McCulloch. I am on our developer ecosystem team for mixed reality at Microsoft. So I get the awesome job of talking to a whole bunch of developers and making sure that they've got access to go build and make awesome stuff on our platform. I made a joke the other day on Twitter that I was really excited for this panel, mostly because it means I get to talk to a bunch of my really close friends for an hour, which we don't get to do nearly enough. And a lot of times, we'd have these conversations, sitting at a restaurant or having drinks somewhere at an event. So it's really exciting to be able to be here with this community and have everybody kind of eavesdrop on our conversation for the next hour. So I want to jump straight into talking about Microsoft Mesh, which we announced just about a month ago at the big Microsoft Ignite event. And during our keynote, mixed reality kind of hit front and center for the entire world as we announced Microsoft Mesh. So I wanted to take a minute to kind of go around the group and say, what was the moment that hit you that this was different than any keynote you'd ever experienced before? And feel free to jump in, anybody.
Okay, if you don't mind, I can jump. So we had the opportunity to be moderating the keynote, a couple of us, and I was amazed by, I think it was the last couple of minutes in which Cirque du Soleil appeared on stage, and the reaction of everyone that were on virtual reality on Altspace was amazing. Just looking around and checking on the different holograms that appeared, seeing Alex Kidman on the middle of stage and being able to be close to him, just watching people being part of that that's was one of my favorite spots of the entire keynote. And I then I realized that from now on, maybe this could be some fun to apply in non-keynotes.
Yeah.
Amen.
I think I have an addition on that one. I think for me, I think the biggest surprise was that Ignite was completely dedicated to mixed reality. It was held in Altspace VR. And then when I'm looking back at my history, because I previously did a lot on SharePoint and moved about 5-6 years to XR, people were laughing at me. It's just a gadget. It's not interesting. Now, guys, who's laughing now? I mean, I think a lot of people who are now doing Teams and SharePoint are going to move to the extended reality space, which is actually really cool. So, yeah, that was great.
Yeah. When Alex Kidman appeared in much higher 3D than I expected, because the first time he did it was we've seen him done a keynote or something, but then he was an avatar, and now it was like, okay, what's happening here? And when this all happened, I felt like exactly what Alexander said, vindicated. I was like, I told you all this time.
Well,
Yes, I agree. Apart from this really cool, like volumetric video avatar, I think my favorite part was the Ocean X use case. Where they have a research vessel that does like deep sea exploration, and on that vessel they have a lab with HoloLenses, so the researchers on the boat can actually share their data in, I think, even real time with other researchers on the shore, and they can then come together in the space and communicate, share their data, share their research. And I think that's such a cool use case to bring to advance science, basically, with this kind of communication.
Yeah. I'm just going to add, I mean, everything that was said was just spot on. One thing I really enjoyed also watching the keynote in Altspace VR, just before the keynote, joined half an hour before it or something like that in Altspace VR. And then, I met some friends in Altspace VR, like our good friend Simon Jackson, for example. And I met him in Altspace VR, and we were just chatting, like as we were standing next to each other before the keynote, just as you would do at a real physical event, right? Like before the event happens, you talk with your friends about it, get excited. And this excitement we could some kind of replicate if we're in this immersive virtual reality setting, and much better than just watching a 2D stream on a website, right? Much more immersive. And so that was already a great starter for the whole content. That was super impressive. I mean, we had a huge skit circling around us and crazy stuff. A wild dance party at the end, right? With like lots of geeks dancing just at a real party, of course. But yeah, it was fantastic.
Awesome. Specifically, Simon, Dorrene, like, is it even possible to describe the feeling of seeing all the work that has been put in by you and the entire team up on stage that morning, and then the reception to the news over the next couple of days? I know I felt like I was riding a wave for like that entire week, so I can only imagine what you guys were feeling.
Dorrene, go for it first.
Yeah. So, Billy, it was a very intense experience for me, I think. So I've worked at Microsoft for a while. I worked in mixed reality for a while, but I joined the Mesh team just as it was like starting to become a thing, 2 days before we were all sent home for the pandemic. And so like I hadn't really even met my manager. I hadn't like met any teammates. It was just you're home, you're working on it, like that's it. And I think the first time we got a one-on-one working in Mesh with eye contact and hand contact, like all that goodness was a very emotional, like I cried, like emotionally intense experience. Like I see my coworkers, I see this, like this is amazing. I think the Ignite announcement, I had made a point leading up to the conference not to look at the keynote all at once, right? Because these kinds of events are built by a small army. And so you have the ability to focus on your one thing, right? I was just like, I'm just going to make sure the service works. Like the service is going to work. The docs are going to work. Like it's going to all be fine. But it was just as much of a surprise for me, like the act of the keynote, than it was for you guys. And it was another like, I can't believe we're here. I can't believe we've done this. Like oh my goodness gracious. And even all my coworkers are like, Dorrene, this is the happiest year. Yeah, it was good. The reception has been wonderful. Everybody trying it out and taking videos and GIFs has been wonderful. And I just look forward to seeing what you all do with it as we continue building out the platform.
I think Dorrene covered it really well. And also thank you for the kind words that you all share about the announce leading up to that. There's only a couple of things that I want to sort of add on top of it. One is this whole notion around innovation, right? It's only fun from the outside. From the inside, this quote that it is blood, sweat, and tears. And the last sort of 8+ years for me in mixed reality has been a long journey of sort of blood, sweat, and tears of various different fronts. And for me to have a moment where we actually get to see it from the other angle, and then see how it comes together was a hugely gratifying moment, right? And March 2021, it's an interesting watershed month for the humanity in the journey of mixed reality, right? It's not just for us as a company. We started March with this big announce we did of bringing mixed reality to the masses, bringing collaborative computing to the masses, and not really tied to any particular device, from first-party to third-party devices, whether it is HoloLens or Quest, whether that is 2D or 3D devices, whether it's AR or VR devices, a point of view that basically said mixed reality truly need to be have a services substrate that can actually work across these early sockets that's coming in here. And to close March with a huge partnership with the United States Department of Defense, where I look at it not just as the economic value of that partnership, right? I look at it as I mentioned in my LinkedIn post yesterday, if you look at, from television to phones to TV to internet to most of the consumer technologies that we take for granted today, started with being quote unquote battle tested, no pun intended, in the defense side. So, March is, as we all say goodbye to March 2021 with the first day of April here, I look back at it as mixed reality is becoming mainstream. And in this panel, I'm looking at many people who actually crossed that chasm purely on a belief statement without seeing anything. And it's a huge validation point for all of us that it's now mainstream. So looking forward to building that. No more we need to say future, building on that present with you all in the coming months and years.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Like, we do need to kind of change our vernacular of, like, we're always talking about we're building the future, but we're actually in it, like, today.
Indeed.
And now it's just a matter of getting it to everybody else in the world so that they can be in it with us. Simon, Dorrene kind of hinted at this, there's kind of like an army of people that have been building this, and there's a few of us who get to be very public in front of everybody, and so we get attributed to doing a lot of this work, but really it's a global effort for the Microsoft team. Can you kind of talk about the teams we have around the world working on this?
Yeah, happy to. That's one of the most one of the best part of the job. And Jesse, you touched on it, but I sort of want to go back one more time to a bunch of us get to be the face of this product, while really the folks who are hard at work, coming up with the research for the next algorithms, figuring out how to bend laser inside a projector less than the size of a sugar cube. It is actually those folks, not just at Microsoft, but more globally, with our partners who is working with, even the so-called competition. We don't really think about it as competition. That group of people truly deserve a tremendous amount of credit for what has been done to date. And we just happen to be one of the few fortunate people to actually talk about it in public. One of the foundational goals of mixed reality is to bring people together for collaboration and co-play. And it's, presence and collaboration and co-play and sort of bringing people together is the quintessential application of mixed reality. And we try to live that we try to live that culture with the globally distributed team ourselves. So, for example, just to name a few, we have a development center in Belgrade, we have a development center in Dublin, we have a development center in different parts of Germany. We have the core research for our presence in Cambridge. We have the mixed reality Capsa Studios, it's our headquarters, if you will, in San Francisco. We have a big unit, obviously, in Redmond itself. We have a big partnership that is starting to be built together, especially with our Teams team that is based in India. We have a huge analytics team that actually is driven from various parts of East Asia, China, and beyond. I'm not trying to name anyone specifically, but when you really look at our community of developers, both at Microsoft as well as the key partners that we work with, it obviously is a huge global affairs, and we try to not talk about, hey, how do we move people into Redmond, and we try to embrace that thing, right? Like one of our biggest sort of research facility is in Zurich, which is ETH Zurich is kind of the mecca of computer vision and many of the geometric AI technologies that goes into mixed reality technologies. And Instros are talking about how people move their lives and families over into one concrete place. How can we use Microsoft Mesh and how can we use mixed reality to be able to collaborate together is one of the things that we look for. And Dorrene, to your point, to me, one of the sort of the eye-opening moment was one of our senior dev managers who is in Dublin. One day I was doing something like late at night, early morning his time, and he kind of just popped in and say, "Dude, what's up? What's going on?" And just seeing Dave Gargan, a friend of mine from Dublin, being able to see in HoloLens, make that eye contact, seeing him through kind of the unreliable early look of Microsoft Mesh back in those days, and just being able to see, oh, there is a thing in here, was truly gratifying. So it wouldn't be possible without, actually not to forget our African Development Center, which has hugely been influential in sort of making a huge push to get us to announce, especially in the middle of the NSARS sort of unrest that was going on. It's a huge collaboration across those teams, and it's not a thing that we are doing despite being geo-distributed. It's a thing that we look at it, we are doing because we are geo-distributed, right? Like it's much easier for us to talk about what is the cross-Atlantic latency if truly it's a thing that's being built by teams that are cross-Atlantic.
Right. So speaking of the preview app, that we've had the ability to be, doing these team meetings in for a while, and now everybody else now has access to it. And I would say, has anybody not seen it? But we all saw it at the intro with, Alex and crew there. So a little bit of spoilers there. Joost, you were one of the first people that I was aware of to post on Twitter about trying it. And one of the first things you pointed out was like the eye tracking was something that you noticed right away. You wanted to kind of talk on that a little bit?
Yeah, well, it was a very funny thing. I always think Microsoft make these very beautiful, totally produced things, and then two guys just make something really crappy and really unscripted, just bumbling through what it is, and then we look at each other. My goodness, we look each other in the eye, and that was really like, this stuff really works. This stuff really thought well. That was like, for me, the ultimate. I mean, okay, you can track hands, you can do that, but then make the jump that you can actually track we played with it. You look from left to right, and indeed it follows the eyes. It was simply amazing, and that makes it alive. That makes an avatar comes alive, and you don't realize how important such a very tiny thing actually might be in a thing like this. That makes it come alive. I was really gobsmacked. All the older stuff was beautiful, but this was actually the ultimate cherry on the cake that made it work for me.
Yeah, that was the thing I think that also made it for me. And I will note that, thank you for saying it is as polished as it is, because the amount of small tweaks that go into things like that, like what is the delta we can have between what's true and what's actually true on the avatar, and what happens when latency gets a little funny, and and you skip a couple frames on the eye tracker, it very quickly goes from like, this is great, to nightmare fuel. And some of the bugs we end up with are quite funny. They are since fixed, but yeah, I think that's one of the big pieces of the platform. Like it's so complicated, but it's so useful to have.
I think Alexander and me have a similar story. When we shot the video you saw at the beginning, and we were done, and then we were still discussing something, and he asked a question, and then he said to me, I can see that you're thinking, because your eyes are moving like this. It's just the feeling of presence.
I do that too.
But don't forget that one of the things I really like, I know the hand tracking and the natural poses is incredible, but especially the sound. I have done a lot of tests of third-party vendors having similar applications. And always the sound is not that good, or it's too much to one ear, which does hurt your ear at some point. And this is just like, it's just wow. It feels like even if someone is standing next to you, you hear him also on the other side, but just as specific that you know that the person is next to you.
Yeah, we've all heard that body language is such a high percentage of communication, and you lose it completely when you're just on the phone with somebody, and you get a little bit back when you're in a video call. But when you jump into Mesh and you can see the hand tracking, and I know Saskia, I watched one of the videos you put out just the other day where you and a coworker were trying different poses with your fingers, and just to see what the other person could see, and watching people experiment with that and have that magic moment and get to visualize that body language almost as if you're in person, I think really is one of the magic moments, doing this.
Yeah, and having someone in your room without worrying about something, because he's really. I had a talk with a colleague of mine who lived 40 kilometers from here, and somebody Sue Lo from the team, and it was just like we were in one room, no latency, no nothing, just very odd and very awesome.
Yep.
René, any thoughts?
Well, the first time I tried it was with a colleague. So I live in Dresden, Germany, right? And the first time I tried it was with a colleague who lives on the West Coast on the US. So 9 hours time difference across the pond. And we put it really to a test, right? So we brought in some 3D models that we built, like a little IoT kit, basically. We had a 3D model of it. We brought that in and reviewed that 3D model together, and made some annotations. Basically, we did a real end-to-end test of what you would typically use it for, and that worked just fine. And I can just agree what the people just before me said. The eye contact, these are the details that make such a big difference. It's fantastic. If you're just standing next to the person and it's looking really with the eyes at you, it's a whole different story. So yeah, fantastic. Of course, there are still some little glitches here and there, but that's expected with a preview.
Yeah,
and handing over stuff is also great. I
just can't think of the impact of that kind of communication it's going to take in the entire world. One of the things customers usually tell me is that they got impacted by not having the possibility to travel and being there when an employee or someone is getting into a specific task or in a job in different countries. And this type of collaboration is the key to approach not being able to jump into an airplane and travel to a city and welcome someone or teaching someone on how to accomplish a task. And the impact that this has is amazing.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, with COVID happening over the last year, this has all just become much more apparent how badly this is needed. And even before COVID, as we think about, trying to be more climate conscious and not, jump on planes as often as a lot of us often end up doing, this, for all of the horribleness that the last year has been with COVID and everything, like it's really kind of driven home the point of, this technology is right where it needs to be getting to kind of help us deal with this, as we move on, in this new reality that we're in.
Yes, and just I was reading the other day an article that says that they see that Microsoft Mesh is like the future of communication. And I'm going to step into the multi-platform possibility. And I live in Latin America, and we don't have that much possibility to get into a VR headset or HoloLens. And having the possibility to run this type of solutions in devices, it's amazing for the type of countries that don't have that possibility to approach that to that devices.
Yeah, I mean, the accessibility and you know, a big buzzword for Microsoft is the democratization of tech, and you know, it's something that we throw around a lot, but it's really super important, especially when we think about devices like HoloLens. Like, that's not super accessible to most of the world. It's actually a very privileged few and a bunch of large companies that can afford that technology. So when we look at mesh and the ability to take this to PCs and, you know, phones, which just about everybody in the world has a phone in their pocket, really brings this whole medium forward for everybody. So that's something I'm super excited about, and I know a lot of you are as well.
The approach that we've had, or the philosophy we've had basically since day one, has been, look, if we're building a collaboration platform, it makes no sense to gatekeep on a specific device, right? And so the litmus test we're trying to run by is, can I go to insert some big box electronics store here and buy a device that uses mesh, right? Like, is that possible? And we hope that as we progress in this preview, right, that becomes more and more and more real. And then as folks like you build applications, you know, for any device that is mesh enabled, you know, it'll just become more accessible to everybody.
And just thinking outside the box, I know I read all the documentation. I know that it is just in English, but I'm pretty sure that adding some functionality, imagine what that what impact that can have in the world if you also can add automatic translation to it. Oh.
On that one, that's a great point that you mentioned. One of the inspirations and one of the sort of the envisioning demos or videos we did, I believe a couple of years back, with Julia White on the stage, talking about how she's real life 360-degree holoportation, but how we used both the neural rendering of the voice translation, but also real-time language translation, so she could speak in English and have her language be spoken words be converted into Japanese, and not just be converted and then come out in a robotic language, but come out as Julia would speak them with the right intonations of it. That is very much where we are going with this. And that's also the way to sort of think about what does accessibility mean in mixed reality, right? It's not just about giving like the captioning or the subtitles of it. It's about how do we reimagine many of the baseline expectations that you have in 2D into how they show up in 3D. So it's very much, Ivana, you make a great point, and that's one of the places where we are definitely going. You know, technology almost always starts in research. And, you know, sockets like HoloLens and sockets like our head-mounted devices are some of the best devices when it comes to voice-based input, given that you can actually afford to keep 4 microphones literally centimeters away from your lips. And hence, those kinds of interfaces become much more easy for us to adapt for cross-language scenarios.
Yeah, it's exciting to think of that future. Even before the call, Alex was talking in Dutch, and a lot of us just looked super confused. You know, and you know, thinking to a future. No, thinking to a future where we can speak in the language that is kind of, you know, quote unquote first party to us, and not having to think about, you know, translating it into the common language that a lot of us speak. I think is going to go a long way towards creating better communication. Like, so much is lost in translation. And so thinking about the way that, you know, we can solve that in the future is super exciting to me.
I actually had to do some, I wanted to have a voice over on one of the videos. And I connected to a friend of mine, also MVP, to ask what kind of engine I should use, because I checked some on the online one, and he actually said to me, "Did you try out the speech API of Microsoft?" It's just ridiculous good. It's just so natural, so logical, because it's not only the translation which is important, it's also pronouncing the sentences correctly, having the pause between a moment when it's the moment when you pitch in the sentence. It's one of the most important things.
Yeah, I one of my favorite videos, in fact, Simon's, is that one from Julia. I like a lot to do research about AI, and seeing how mixed reality and AI get together at some point. That I can sense that that's a future that Microsoft is approaching. So, and that combination is absolutely amazing. I know probably we are, you guys are still on the way, and as Dorrene says, innovation is going to be hard, but I believe that most of us are excited if that's the approach that's coming in the future, right?
Indeed.
But if we're not solving hard problems, what's even the point?
Exactly.
True of everyone involved, right?
Yeah, that's the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good segue into like what Mesh helps us do. Like Saskia mentioned it in the intro. Like I think one of the fundamental things is it makes it so developers can stop solving for this, common problem that's actually a hard problem. Like I think as developers, it's really easy for us to say, because if we don't know that it's a hard problem, we don't think that it's a hard problem. And at that point we're like, oh, this should be easy. So it should be easy for us to create an application that can have two people talk to each other. And so we solve that. And then you say, okay, now we want to add a third person. Well, now we want to add 10 people, and not thinking through those problems of like, once you start adding 10 people, it's not a linear graph of like bandwidth that you use. It becomes an exponential graph. And all of a sudden, the app that you were hitting 60 frames per second in is now down to 2 frames per second or crashing. And it takes a lot to kind of think through all those problems. And then so many of our customers that we get signal from are like, I need this problem solved, and I'm tired of trying to solve it myself in this not so great way. And I think that's an advantage that Microsoft has, is like having that broad customer base and seeing those patterns and saying, okay, 90% of our customers are running into the same thing. How do we go solve it so that they can go tackle more important problems like global warming, or what's going on in the deep sea, with Ocean X. So I don't know, Simon and Dorrene, do you want to kind of weigh in on that and how we've kind of come to where Mesh is today?
Yeah, Simon, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite sort of storylines or sort of decks within the company actually was about the start of Microsoft Research. And it started with, Solving for 2020 started in 2000. When you look at how far we have come along with these various different technologies, it started many, many years back, right? One of the foundations of what is possible with depth sensing and what is possible with the hand tracking, many of these things actually started its journey with Kinect. So Alex deserves a tremendous amount of credit for how he sort of invented this space in a very path sequencing, very pragmatic, very ambitious, but sort of being able to deliver value along the way, finding sort of click stops, as he would call it, along the way to be able to deliver and get us into this world where now we are able to talk about the metaverses and multiverses and being in a Ready Player One like life. And it's not a destination; it's a journey of being able to make those progress in an incremental way. The sort of the concreteness of it. There are 4 foundational technologies that I always talk about that underpins Microsoft Mesh, right? One is the spatial sensing or spatial maps that enables us to truly place a 3D holographic content in real life. in a physical space and be able to have that thing persist across time devices. That started its journey with the original 6 degrees of freedom tracking that was locally in the device. And then we figured out how to take it off from the device and build a cloud-based anchor system that can be kind of co-created with the different devices that exist in a space, right? So instead of each device, we first taught each device to have its own map, and then we built a cloud-based, if you will, an arbiter of the real world where you can actually have all these devices co-create and collaborate together to make this global map. There is one of the videos where someone in my team walks around one of the Swiss railway stations and map out the world by the sheer fact of them wearing a HoloLens and walking through the system. And then someone else being able to go in there and consume that map, but in the process of consuming it, being able to build the adaptive technology to go back in there and recreate and adjust the inaccuracies and fix it up. So you can actually see the progression from a on-device tracking system to multi-device tracking systems to having a cloud-based system that can actually be co-created with that. The second part is presence, right? Like, we are experiencing presence in 2D right now here, right? Or, voice is 1D, images are 2D, and, now we can actually do 3D presence from avatars to holoportation. And again, you can see that we first built head tracking, then we built hand tracking, then we built eye tracking. We can now probably read your lips more clearly if we have a technology called voice seams, which is used to sort of get the phonetics of the spoken words and being able to move the lips around it. Then we have kind of an inverse kinesiology from being able to use sort of the human body's anatomy to sort of use an AI model to bring all of that together, right? From head tracking to eye tracking to pupil tracking to hand tracking to so on and so forth, and then apply human kinesiology on top of it and say, if those are all the places where your heads and hands are, you are likely off shaped like this. And being able to build that thing became the next step in avatars. For holoportation, the challenge is actually much more around sort of tackling the compute and bandwidth of it. Like in 2016, Alex did back then, a legendary TED Talk where he had one of the principal scientists from JPL showed up as a holoportation. It was possible to do so, except that we essentially ran a 3G, an L3 LAN from one place to the other with almost like a gigabyte of bandwidth actually was going between them, and sort of compute machines that sort of required custom power supplies to drive it. And then the goal over there is, how do we use the advancement in AI? How do we use the advancement in sensor technology? How do we use the latest and greatest of the network technologies like FTL and being able to bring it together? And I remember René actually once showed me 2-3 years back something called HoloBeam, using a Kinect to be able to create a 2.75D hologram. So there's been always technologies accruing towards it. There, the challenge was more about how do we cost reduce it? How do we compute reduce it? How do we bandwidth reduce it so that we can actually just make that thing true from, whether you have one of these devices and the sensors on the back of the bezel, or you have one of those mixed reality capture studios with 108 cameras that are looking at you and everything in between, and being able to deliver that, regardless of where your fidelity for capture and consumption is, we have a holoportation solution for you. That's where we want to get to. It's a question that, if I start talking, I'll probably speak for the next 1 hour. So I want to actually stop there. And sort of the final couple places is from a rendering and multi-user sync perspective, one of the biggest problems over there is when you have a 7-watt passively cooled untethered holographic display on your head, you don't really have the graphics power of a T4 that is actually sitting under my desk right now, right? And hence, how do we still deliver the outstanding graphics and fidelity that truly requires to drive eventually like 2 4K displays on your head, and now in three planes, and being able to deliver that kind of a fidelity, but not really require the level of compute, the level of sort of the processing power that requires, in a typical desktop machine, is a challenge that technologies like Azure Remote Rendering and And also, how do we do that across different users who are geographically distributed? One of the things that we are absolutely committed to is, when you blink your eyes, you really want to really have that thing come across halfway around the world, right? One of the test in human sort of interactions is when I raise my hand to give you a high five, you need to see my hand back, halfway around the world. You need to raise your hand. I need to see that thing, and then two of us need to come together in the virtual space to complete that high five. And that experience truly require all that interactions to be done within like a quarter of a second. 150 seconds would be great. 200 seconds would be pushing it, and that's the type of delivery that we are looking for. And now, when you apply that to tens of thousands of users at the scale that we hosted Microsoft Ignite at, that becomes the fun sort of progression of the problems, right? And we are not done, right? I mean, think about this for a second. The virtual economy is just starting. The virtual presence is just starting. And we have always talked about metaverses and Ready Player One, like lives all our sort of at least the last 10 years of my life. And we're just starting there, right? So you are now going to see this exponential adoption with the sort of the Web 3.0, with the NFTs and sort of coin economies that are backed up by what I call the internet economies or internet money, and many other sort of governance protocols with the distributed ledger that comes along. We are just starting that journey. So I look forward to sort of continuing that, but that is a long answer to your question.
Talking about these new scenarios, new technology, new everything that's coming, or as you said, Simon, is already happening. I was wondering. I think that Dorrene can help me with this question. So, how does Microsoft sees the role of developers now with this platform in the future?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? I think, as Simon has said, a lot of what we're doing now in mixed reality is introducing these high potential, high science concepts to the industry, to the world. But the job of a platform PM or a platform human, really in any means, is to take that potential and ship it, right? Like when you think about the iPhone, when the iPhone first came out, the response at first was like, oh, cool, I have a camera. Like, look at how amazing this is. And then that kind of became table stakes. And then the next thing became exciting. And now they're up to, 3D LiDAR cameras and all sorts of incredible sensors and technologies. My hope is that with Mesh, the language around collaboration becomes boring in a way that lets you take that potential and build your own stellar applications on top of it, right? And so Microsoft, we are very good at shipping a platform that describes, here's the basic constructs that make a thing be true. And what is really, really cool to see, and why I love working in the platform space of this company, is like all of the incredible vertical integrations you guys build. Like, I will probably never build laser tag ever, right? But my platform can. And so it's that kind of stuff, right? Go take some crazy scenario you have dreamed in your head, and hopefully we give you the bits and bobs to go make it real.
So one of the interesting things is, like, as a platform creator, that as Microsoft is, there's all the technical aspects to it, which is something that we've done over and over again across Windows and Office and all of these platforms that we've built out there. But there's also like the ethical considerations, which is something that's becoming a bigger and bigger deal in tech, and we see these conversations happening all the time. What are some of the considerations and processes that Microsoft has when they're building out a platform like this?
Dorrene, you should take that thing first, and then I'm happy to follow on.
Sounds good. Yeah, so we at Microsoft have a whole office of responsible AI, whose sole job and responsibility is to make sure that the platforms and the products we ship aren't actively causing harm to society in ways that maybe, my own personal privileges or my own personal lived experiences wouldn't catch on my own. And you can imagine how with something like Mesh, it's very easy to, if you don't think about this with empathy or with inclusivity, how you could very easily build something that is, maybe a differently abled individual wouldn't be able to use this, and that's a real bummer. Like, that's not okay. I would say right now, something like 30 to 40% of my time is like looking through harms analyses and going, look, these are the places where it could go wrong. Let's go fix this. Which, you know, there's a whole, like, I can talk about this, but you can imagine, even with holoportation, right? Like, I looked at the first time we saw it and I was like, we did a Star Wars, we did it. And so, you know, 60% of my time is building Star Wars and the other 40% is not building the Death Star. And hopefully we do what we say we are coming up to do with this. But obviously, you know, it's going to be a thing. We ship it. Hopefully we get it right the first time, but, you know, we won't. We'll make changes and updates to the platform, and that's why we're in preview.
Love the example.
Yeah, I think everybody understood exactly what you meant when you said building Star Wars, but not the Death Star.
It's harder than you think.
This is a quote I'm going to steal.
Did you want to add anything onto that, Simon?
No, I think Dorrene covered it perfectly.
Awesome. I mean, so that's, you know, Microsoft definitely has our part in this, but also developers too. You know, is that something that you guys actively think about, you know, as you're developing on top of Microsoft, or actually any platform, right? Like, this is not just a responsibility Microsoft has, but it's a shared responsibility across the entire, you know, developer world.
Indeed. You know, the point that you mentioned about, you know, that being a shared accountability, one of the best sort of seminal work that we have sort of published in this space is a book from Brad Smith, the general counsel at Microsoft, called, I believe it's called Weapons and Tools. And, you know, you can all use your favorite superhero story to say, with power comes responsibility. Therein lies how we approach some of these problems, right? This is not the first time this team or this company is launching technologies like this. Our neural rendering, voice rendering technology is one of the places where we truly use that as a moment to understand the true repercussions of, you know, there are probably, you know, more than 100 hours of my spoken video, if not even more, out there in the internet. And how do you avoid using this technology to be able to render it? Watermarking and defense technologies we can build against it. It's an area where we are deeply invested in. We do not want to come in the defense here, right? Like, we do not want it to be like, oh, we heard this complaint, let's go fix it. That's not how we want to approach this. There's a new space, and just the same way, like when cloud came about, you know, 25 years back, you know, privacy and compliance and governance and risk and document lifecycle protection, all those things were like the big terms back then about how, you know, how do you avoid cloud providers peering into your data? And hopefully, I don't really want to sit on some laurels and say that it's a done deal, but hopefully the world has seen that Microsoft took a very deliberate approach to that problem by truly going out there. You know, the opposite of defense is offense, but I don't want to say that, like, truly going out there and embracing it to understand customers truly use it to get their work done, whether it's a consumer or a business. And sort of, we do not need to look into somebody's data to take advantage of it, and created a very different point of view around it. And our goal and our ultimate belief is that we can actually invest in, you know, what we call responsible AI, the 6 principles of responsible AI, be deeply applied into this space as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Simon. So I want to jump out and talk to Alex and Saskia and Joost and Ivana and René for a second. As we move forward with this platform and it becomes available, what kind of ideas are you thinking of things to build on top of it? You know, we've been developing it with our ideas in mind, but it's really once we get it out in the hands of everybody else that the really cool stuff shows up, because, you know, as brilliant as all of our people are, there's a limited number of us, and the sooner we get it out to more people, I'm excited to see what all you are thinking.
Can I take this one first?
Go for it.
Well, as a developer, of course, my head started bubbling immediately. I mean, I have 2 apps in the store that I was like, yeah, if you can do this together, watching airplanes or watching anywhere in the world in 3D, that would be great. I'm now building for my company an app in which you can train CPR. How cool would it be to have a real instructor watch you see the same what you do, and maybe not even being in the same room, being anywhere in the world. I mean, I know how I might be able to build this myself, but not as full featured and not such a high fidelity as Microsoft. So why should I ever do that? I mean, I don't build my own network stacks. So
Right.
This is how I see it. It was called TCP/IP of mixed reality, and I think that's a very good analogy. Next.
Shall I go?
Go.
Yeah.
So I've been involved when I started last year with Ivana, and I'm actually part of the Dynamics team. Well, I'm doing a lot of XR, and I try to move the team a little bit away from Dynamics into the other world of Microsoft, which is also really interesting. Think about digital twins, IoT data, which makes, as you said, all rich solutions. So we actually came up with an accelerator combining all those technologies together. And that's, at the moment, we were thinking about building in multi-user, or the way of how to have presence in there. And I was already thinking about, let's start with Photon and maybe some other tools. And then this came. But the first thing I'm going to do when I get my hands on it, I'm definitely going to build in almost all the capabilities. And to add one, I like the fact that you also have the on full scale rendering, or the remote rendering part of that. We actually not discussed it today. One of the biggest challenges when you build digital twins for clients is that they have models, but those models are far bigger than normal. And bringing those models, making smaller, is always a challenge, and it makes it a little bit difficult to actually start using those things. Now imagine now that a company who has those large models can actually now build their whole digital twin around it by combining different capabilities of the Microsoft Mesh platform. And that's definitely the direction I'm going to look into. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah, and to add to what Alexander said, I think having Mesh, like say 2 years ago, would have been completely game changing for the way we build applications. Like we had this application where the use case was 20 users physically in the same room, and they had to interact with a lot of data. They had a map of the Netherlands, and plug in all kinds of data sources, the traffic, the weather, and so forth. It would have been great to do this on the HoloLens, but we didn't have remote rendering back then. So we went for a tethered headset just for the graphical capabilities. And the second thing is just like the multi-user part, like the syncing, the latency, the persistence, all that work took up about like half of the project. And with Mesh, you get all of that for free almost. So this whole project would have gone completely different. I think that's great.
In my case, I already have been thinking completely different scenario. One, of course, is helping the customers, the 3XM customers, into producing even faster. The ones that have companies all over the world. I think that's the key, and helping them on applying this new technology to their company. But the one that it's like a personal project is I live far away from my parents, so and I see my parents also living far away from my nephew, and it would be amazing to have games in which they can interact with my nephew. It's something so small, but I can see that scenario being used with kids and parents that miss their kids, or family that are far away. So that's my personal project.
Yeah, I think the first thing you built, Jesse, was a chess game, right?
Yeah, I took some 3D assets that were free on the Unity store, and MRTK and Mesh and the Mesh toolkit, and I think between the prefabs that were in the Mesh tools for Unity and those prefabs from of the chess set, I think I had a chess game up and running, no AI or anything. Like 2 players had to actually move the pieces and everything. But I had it up and running in about an hour and a half. Out, pushed to the HoloLens and testing with somebody else.
Everyone that is game developer that are watching this video know that you can develop something like that in an hour.
Yeah, it was pretty stellar. It was amazing.
Nice.
Awesome.
Can you already share a video of the results, Jesse? Or is that not?
I haven't taken a video, but I can certainly do that. And yeah, I can post that online.
It's just submit it to the store, like we can all play it there.
That would be cool, actually.
Yeah, like a championship.
There goes the weekend project, I guess. Thinking about the kind of applications, Gartner coined this term called immersive workspaces, market research company Gartner. And I think this really, like Microsoft Mesh is an implementation of immersive workspaces, or allows you to build your own implementations, because Microsoft Mesh is a platform, right? It's not a final product. It's a platform driven by Azure and a bunch of services. We can all build immersive workspaces on top of that, right? And immersive workspaces, collaborative work environments that provide these kind of more real-world presence, where teams can leverage this visual, audio, and other sensory elements and be together and collaborate immersively. And one case is, of course, training, for example, right? Like, not just like you see a lot of training applications in virtual reality or also in mixed reality, but typically these days, with travel, it's tough, and so you can be right next to the person, right? And that is, of course, a big use case. Also, like what Alexander was saying, and the other panelists, digital twins is a very good use case I could see. And of course, integrating volumetric video, real-time streaming, holoportation with our HoloBeam stuff, that's the kind of things we're looking into. But I've just been looking through some of the projects we have done in the last 5-6 years. Like, actually all of them would benefit from it. Like, if you look at it, it's just like a key essential part. It's not something, hey, this application is very well suited. I would rather say the other, you would turn it around, like, this application is not suited for Mesh, and that would be the very few that you would find, I guess. Yeah, but exciting stuff, because what I see, it's really solving the tough challenges we all have been facing, right? We always wanted to build collaborative applications, but then you had to struggle with the networking stack and all the other things that were mentioned before. And that's what's exciting. It democratizes collaboration application development, if you will.
Yeah, and when we first started kind of the thing that became Mesh, about a year ago now, the very first thing we did was say, everybody go away. We're doing customer research. Like, leave me alone. We're not building any code. Like, we're here's my UX researcher. Like, we're coming back in 2 months, right? And that's what we did. Was we went to 13, 14, 15 different companies and just asked, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you here? What are you doing in the collaboration space right now? We all are about to undergo a fair amount of pain with this, new remote working. Like, what's in your brain? Like, what are you doing? And it was really kind of interesting and fascinating, and honestly kind of a privilege to be able to learn from, folks like you and other companies that we worked with. And we think that we might have done okay this first time around. Like, obviously we're going to need to do better, but it's a preview. We'll always get better. But we based a lot of it off of the needs of the industry right now, and hopefully this first version will help us get there.
I think I have one addition on the question of Jesse. That was that. So we're not talking about using the Mesh SDK, but on top of that, things are going to come for Teams, for Dynamics, and I think the fact that the whole space of people working in Teams and Dynamics is going to be pulled into the XR space. That's going to be exciting. The fact that old space VR at some point becomes more maybe in the future a business application. I mean, the new way of working together, new way of collaborating together. We shouldn't forget that one.
I remember when Allspace got acquired by Microsoft, even before I started working here, and it seemed like such a weird thing to see Microsoft go do and go pick up, and now 3 years down the road, here we are, and we see it becoming such an integral part of, this entire XR industry that we're building. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I totally agree. Specifically, if you look for me at enterprise, this is going to be the next few years are going to be just so cool, so great, so enjoyable. The fact that the stuff we can offer our clients, it's just
I think that next to the collaboration aspect of Mesh, what I'm really excited about is things like that you get a persistent map of the world around you, basically, if I understood your talks correctly. And you can combine that then with machine vision and all the other AI services that you get through Azure and build, for example, navigation apps from that. I think that's also a really, really interesting direction.
Awesome. Looking at the clock, I think we've got like 2 minutes left before we're kind of scheduled here, and I want to respect everybody's calendars. I know there's some questions in the chat talking about timeline and whatnot. So right now, and I've seen a couple of people ask if the SDK is available. So right now we're in private preview. And so what that means is we've got some close partners and developers that we're working with to take what we've built and start making sure that it's stable, and then we can start scaling it out. And once we feel that we've hit a good place for that, we'll move into a public preview. We don't have a timeline for that. So there's nothing out there right now for like the general developer to go out and grab. But if you want to get the latest news, we've got our newsletter that you can sign up for. If you go to aka.ms/iwantmr, sign up for that. We'll be sending out information. We send out a monthly newsletter. So as we get closer to that date, you can absolutely be ready to go and start building on top of Mesh. Alex, is there anything that you guys want to add on at the end here?
No.
I can just say, I think you just made every developer on this planet able to achieve more, easier.
That is our mission statement for Microsoft. So, and I think this is the first company I've ever worked for where I 100% believe in our mission statement. So getting to hear people say that we're accomplishing it, I think makes myself super excited, and I would assume Dorrene and Simon as well.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for the time.
Thank you.
And the same to you, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you, Jesse, for hosting.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was great.
Let's do this again.
Thank you. Next time, meet and mesh. Is that a new term? Meet and mesh?
Absolutely.
I'm all for it.
New hashtag, meet and mesh.
Meet and mesh.
Okay.
All right, folks. Take care. Have a nice
Bye, all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.